It's John McLauchlan here from Fudoshin Karate Grimsby. Now I'm going to answer one of those questions that comes up almost every day on social media, and that is karate effective in the real world? And you know, I put content out there and people will say that that wouldn't work in a real situation, it wouldn't work on the street. So this is what this video is going to be all about, and whether it would or whether it wouldn't, and the reasons why we do certain things in karate. So just to give you some context, I've been doing karate since '83, which I know you don't really care about, but I used karate in the real world as a police officer for the best part of 10 years. I served in a place called Grimsby, which is my hometown, which, even though the people are great in Grimsby, it is a pretty rough and a pretty violent town, and I think we were next in line to the worst statistics in the country, next to the Met, okay, in terms of arrests and violent crime per capita. So I used it every day, and when I was in the police I also taught the officer safety program, and this was something that was devised by a guy called Pete Boatman, and Pete devised something that really made me understand how karate can actually work in the real world and how it really does work, and it really brought it home as to how effective karate is when you understand basic psychology and when you're in the real world every single day for those 10 years I was a police officer. So I think if you're, and let me get it right, don't get me wrong, I think the question of this wouldn't work, I think it's a great question. I think it's a really good question, because it's not, I never see anything as a criticism. I always see comments like that as a request for more information, and that's really what this video is about. So I think the best way to say this is that when you first start doing karate, you've got to learn the basics. When you learn karate, you're not going to be, okay, this is your first session, you know, start doing some free fighting, fight somebody. It's never going to work. Okay, you've got to learn the basics, and those basics include things like blocking agi-uke, punch into front punch, having your hand back there, because what it does, it teaches people a number of necessary and basic skills to generate power, to really understand how the body works, the body dynamics, about, more importantly, how to create control, because if you can create control, you've got control in many different areas. So it teaches people the basics, and it really hones those skills. Okay, so let's take something like a basic front punch. You've seen the video, basic front punch, where we bring the hand back to the side there, we call hikate. So we're punching to the center, and what you're doing there is you're understanding how the body works. The hikate hand, it's almost like a push-pull. So instead of most people when they punch on the street, let me tell you, I've seen so many people have little fights in the street where they're trying to punch each other, they've had a few jars of beer, okay, you turn up as a police officer, they're swinging wildly, no one's doing anything, it's a bit scrappy. That's the way fights normally go in the real world. And I'll tell you right now, if a trained karateka took on somebody in the real world, there's no way, from my experience, somebody in the real world would last 2 seconds with somebody who has the skills of traditional karate, or therefore any martial arts, whether it's martial arts or judo, boxing, whatever. Okay, so that's the first kind of thing I will say. The second thing I'll say is that when you get into the real world, I want to give you 2 real world examples from my experience as a police officer. I think it's going to kind of bring it home as to where we are, as to whether karate is effective. So the first example is this. There was a karateka, highly trained karateka, did really, really well in championships, all the usual kind of, medals, and he was very good. He was walking in the park on a particular day, and this druggy scrote jumps out with a knife and says, "Give me your wallet." So what do you think he did? Did he jump up and do a flying kick to his head, take the knife and put him down for the police to handle? What did he do? Well, I'll tell you what he did. He froze. He got his wallet out of his back pocket. He gave the druggie this wallet, and the druggie made off. And that bothered him to a point where he actually suffered with a bit of depression, because he thought to himself, there's so many things I could have done in that scenario, and he replayed it over and over and over again. And he didn't know why he froze. Okay. Now the next example is that of when Grimsby play every other Sunday, every other Saturday. Let me say it again. They play the football match. So Grimsby play the football match, and sometimes you get a bit of trouble. I used to patrol it. Used to really enjoy it, and you get a little bit of problems, a little bit of violence, but nothing too major. This one particular day, there was a bank manager with his son, and for reasons unknown, the pitch was invaded. And to avoid him getting crushed with his son, he ended up on the pitch. And he ended up protecting his son because he got started on by this guy. Okay, and the bank manager punched the guy in the mouth. Okay, and the guy he punched was dead before he hit the floor. And that's somebody who, works in an office, never really had any violence in him at all. But they are just two very different juxtaposed kind of situations where in the right or the wrong situation you may or may not be able to defend yourself. Now, one of the things I will say about the officer safety program is that it comes down to your stress reactions in a real situation. So this is what really brought it home for me, is that when I was in the championships and you're there fighting, suddenly you can't hear anything. Suddenly you can't see anybody because your peripheral vision comes down, and all you can see is your opponent, and that's a stress reaction. And one of the things that we understand is that if you can control your stress in a real life situation, then you can take control of that situation. If you've never been in a real world situation, then you don't know. And the thing is, with a real world situation, with a real world combat, it's quick, it's violent, it can be nasty, it can be unprecedented. You can maybe see or experience things that you don't really want to see, okay, and that can affect you in different ways. So if you can control your stress and you understand the stress reactions that happen and the non-verbal communication in an aggressor, then you've got a much better chance of being able to understand and defend yourself in the right way. Okay. So we know that peripheral vision comes down. We get what we call audible exclusion. We can't hear anything. Okay. So we've had people from the American, we used to work alongside American police forces, New York Police Department, and they would say that in some circumstances their colleague has fired off their weapon and they haven't heard it because of audible exclusion, because of stress reactions. Okay. And I tell you, one of the best things that you can do when you start karate, or if you're involved with karate right now, is to do championships, because at least you'll be entering a slightly more, even though it's controlled, even though it's not real, but when you go into a championships, you experience those stress reactions, and you can go some way into what it's like in a real combative situation. Even though I will say the two are very, very different, okay, but at least it puts your toe in the water. Now, here's something else. When we practice the basics, okay, we're practicing kime, okay, which is the focus. So you know the breath, and you can hear it in the technique, the snap of the gi, okay, or the breath coming out, and the whole focus, which is called kime. Now, every time we do that with a partner in karate, we do that at full power, but we control it, okay? Because if we didn't control it, then there'd be serious injuries every time we train, and we don't want that. So we control it. When we practice control, we can control it so we can pull it. We can control it so it just taps the face, even though it's at full power. So if we can control it there, we can also control it at whatever level we need to. Okay, so and this is something else I'm going to say about the law, we need to exercise reasonable force in any circumstances in the real world situation. So that is in relation to what's happening. If somebody is threatening you, is it reasonable under the circumstances to punch somebody and knock them out? Okay, probably not. Okay, if somebody then presents an edged weapon and we punch them and knock them out, is it reasonable? Absolutely. Okay, if we punch somebody or do something to defend ourselves, is it reasonable if that person sustains a medium to a long-term injury if they're presenting an edged weapon? Okay, possibly. Okay, and this is what we need to do in karate. This is why we practice kime. This is why I practice things like the makiwara, because it practices that focus. So if we punch somebody in the stomach, we can tap, okay? We can go through a bit further and create a bruise. Most of the time, if you get punched by somebody who is a reasonably good karateka with kime, you won't see the bruise. The bruise will be internal, but you won't see it externally. Okay, now if you do that with full power, then what that ends up with, you end up with a blood force trauma. And that's why we say karate, you kill with one blow. But you can only kill with one blow if you're in control of your own situation, if you're in control of your own emotions when you're involved in a combative real world street situation. Okay, so the answer really is that yes, you can defend yourself, but here's the crux, and here's what I want to end on, because this video could be quite long. I want to cut it a bit shorter. The emphasis on karate, number one, is having fun. What do you get whilst you're enjoying your training? You absorb the training, you train hard. But what it does, it alerts you to potential situations, because the way I teach karate is I teach it in the real world. If you're in a situation, this is potentially what could happen, but be mindful of what may or may not happen. Okay, so you're not putting yourself in a situation. If you're in a situation where you have to defend yourself and it comes to punches and kicks, to my mind, you've gone to the last resort. Punching and kicking is always the last resort. Okay. The first resort is to avoid it in the first place. And sometimes, when I was a police officer, what we used to teach is that if someone's aggression level is up here, you raise your aggression to here, match them, and then bring them down. Okay, and then bring them down. And that's when we talk about building confidence in karate. Yes, confidence is the number one thing. Confidence, self-esteem, all those really good things that we do in karate. But if you've got the confidence to be able to elevate your aggression and be in control of your emotions and bring someone down to their level and bring them down and just dissolve the situation completely, that in essence is karate in action. We use karate every single day. We use it to talk on video. We use it when we walk. We use it when we're doing anything. We use it when we're driving. Okay, we develop emotional intelligence, something that is lacking a lot of the time these days, where if somebody cuts in front of us in the car, hey, doesn't really matter, because we've got rid of the ego, we've got rid of the trauma. If we can get rid of the trauma, childhood trauma, we get rid of all that. We get rid of the ego, and there's no reason to react. Okay, and all that is all to do with understanding yourself, understanding karate, and making this thing work in the real world. So does karate work in the real world? Yes, it does. Okay. Just being aware of yourself and just being aware of what's going on around you, and having the confidence to look people in the eye, having the confidence to shake someone's hand with a proper handshake. It changed everything. And what it does, in effect, it changes your non-verbal communication, and people respond unconsciously to each other's non-verbal communication. The reason some people are successful with video online, and the reason some people are successful in life generally, is because they come from a place of authenticity. They're authentic, and people can see that. People can't necessarily distinguish what it is consciously, but subconsciously people understand the non-verbal communication, and we react subconsciously. And this, in effect, is what you build in karate. It's something that cannot be, it's something that is actually priceless, being able to build confidence, because it will help you avoid the majority of conflict situations on the street in reality, because people will see that you've got confidence. The non-verbal communication says to the potential aggressor, leave them alone, because I think I might not come out very well if I try and take them on. Okay. And I'll say right now, you know, as a police officer, yes, you deal with people, you have fisticuffs with people, and some people deal with it okay, and some people don't deal with it very well at all. I'm talking about police officers. And for me personally, it was me raising the aggression to bring people to this level, to calm them down, and then after they've calmed down, okay, the different part of the brain takes over, and you're making them a cup of tea when you get back to the police station. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing. So the important takeaway, I think, with this video is that in order to build that confidence, in order to build techniques that could potentially kill with one blow, which is what karate is all about. I know it doesn't seem politically correct to talk about killing somebody with one blow, but that is the origins of traditional Shotokan Karate, and that's what it's all about. You've got to go through the basics. You've got to practice the basics, Agi-uke, Soto-uke, doing it in the right way, doing it with the right techniques, and also you've got to challenge yourself. You've got to challenge yourself, and sometimes that challenge can be using a makiwara, sometimes that challenge can be going to a championships, and sometimes that challenge may well be just using it on the street. But when you use karate on the street, do it to a point where you engage with people. You know, right now there are so many people who are so disconnected, not only from themselves, not only from their friends and colleagues and the family, but from just life in general, from themselves. So start connecting with people and just see what happens, because I tell you what, it's fascinating when you walk down the street, rather than walking down with your head down looking at your phone, get your phone, chuck it away, okay, or put it in your pocket, okay, straighten your back, look forward, and when you look at people, look them in the eyes and see what happens, because that in turn is using karate in the street, okay, and just see what the reactions are, because when you start to put your head above the parapet, okay, you'll see what life and what people are about. And people are amazing. People really are amazing. And you'll start to understand not only more about you, but more about what karate is all about. It's not about just punching and kicking. It's about the whole ethos of developing your own internal superpower. You know, you do develop superpowers with karate. I will tell you that for nothing. But in order to understand what I've just said about superpowers, you've got to be there, and you've got to do the training, and you've got to push through. Okay. And for the people who say that wouldn't work in reality, go out into reality and try it. Okay. And yes, I know what you're saying. I know a block like this almost seems completely ridiculous because what you're doing is you're exposing all your internal organs, and you would never do that in reality, okay? But look at what you would do in reality. Sometimes you would do this, okay? And even though somebody makes you jump, you do this, you aren't actually being reactive, okay? But what we do in karate is we're doing it so repetitively that your conscious becomes unconscious, okay? And you react in a way that you would want to react, okay? But again, does karate work in the street? You've got to test it for yourself, and just testing it in the way that I've just said about looking at people in the eyes, saying good morning to people, not reacting when somebody cuts up in front of you, being emotionally intelligent, and getting rid of the ego. And that is the ultimate aim of karate. It's not just about punching and kicking, it's about developing the character. This is what Funakoshi said. Okay, he said, the ultimate aim of karate is not in winning medals, it's about developing the character of the participants. And if you can do that, then you will be able to defend yourself in any situation. Anyway, I hope that has answered this question. This question actually is something that a 10 or 15 minute video cannot answer, but it's fascinating. It's a great question, and I thank you for putting those questions together. If you've got any more questions, drop them just below. Give us a like if you've liked this video, and I'm quite happy to discuss anything with you. Okay, I've got quite a bit of experience in different areas, and I think that experience should be shared for the good of karate and for the good of martial arts. Anyway, I'm John McLauchlan. It's been a pleasure as always speaking to you. Drop me a comment below, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.